It all started with a convenience store robbery in Chicago, 2014. Marcus Williams was in the wrong place at the wrong time. One witness, one mistake, one life destroyed. Now, 10 years later, Judge Frank Caprio holds the evidence that will prove Marcus's innocence. But the truth he's about to uncover is darker than anyone imagined. And if you love these real courtroom stories, don't forget to subscribe to Stories from the Court channel. New, surprising justice stories are waiting for you every day. Judge Frank Caprio adjusted his glasses as he looked down at the case file before him. In his 4 decades on the bench, he had seen countless appeals, overturned verdicts, and lives changed forever. But today felt different. The weight of what was about to unfold pressed heavily on his shoulders. Case number 2024 CV1847. Judge Caprio announced, his voice carrying the authority of years, but also a gentleness that had made him beloved worldwide. The state of Illinois versus Marcus Williams, post-conviction DNA exoneration hearing. Marcus Williams stood slowly from the defendant's table. At 34 years old, he looked older than his year. 10 years in prison had etched lines of pain and resilience into his face. His hands trembled slightly as he faced the judge who held his future in his hand. Mr. Williams, Judge Caprio said, his voice softer now, I want you to know that this court takes these proceedings very seriously. We're here today because new evidence has come to light. DNA evidence that wasn't available during your original trial. The courtroom was packed. Media representatives filled the gallery, their cameras capturing every moment. Marcus's mother, Sarah Williams, sat in the front row, clutching a tissue. She had aged a decade in the 10 years her son had been imprisoned. Behind her sat Detective Rodriguez, the original investigating officer, his face grim with the knowledge of what was to come. Dr. Jennifer Chen, the DNA expert from the Illinois State Crime Lab, stepped forward to the witness stand. She carried with her a manila folder that contained the results that would change everything. Dr. Chen, Judge Caprio began, please explain to the court what your investigation revealed. Dr. Chen opened her folder with careful precision. Your Honor, in 2014, DNA testing was not as advanced as it is today. The original evidence from the convenience store robbery that resulted in the death of store clerk Robert Martinez was processed, but the sample was too degraded for a conclusive match at that time. She paused, looking directly at Marcus Williams. Using new extraction techniques and enhanced DNA analysis, we were able to obtain a full genetic profile from evidence collected at the crime scene. Blood on the broken glass, hair fibers, and saliva on a cigarette butt found outside the store. Judge Caprio leaned forward. And what did this analysis reveal? The DNA profile does not match Marcus Williams, Dr. Chen stated clearly. Not only does it exclude him as the perpetrator, but when we ran the profile through the national database, we found a match. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Judge Caprio gavelled for order. Dr. Chen, who did the DNA match, the profile matches Raymond Ray Thompson, age 42, currently serving time in Stateville Correctional Center for armed robbery. He was arrested 2 years after Mr. Williams was convicted, but his DNA was never connected to the Martinez murder until now. Marcus Williams's legs gave out slightly, and he gripped the table for support. His attorney, Lisa Henderson, placed a steadying hand on his shoulder. In the gallery, his mother began to sob, but Judge Caprio wasn't finished. He had read the full investigative report, and what he discovered there had kept him awake for nights. Dr. Chen, there's something else, isn't there? Something about the original investigation? Dr. Chen hesitated, then nodded. Yes, Your Honor. During our review, we discovered that Raymond Thompson was actually questioned by police in the original investigation. He was brought in as a person of interest, but was released after 12 hours. Why was he released? Judge Caprio asked, though he already knew the answer would anger him. According to the police reports, Detective James Morrison, the lead investigator, believed Thompson's alibi. Thompson claimed he was with his girlfriend that night. However, we've since learned that this girlfriend was threatened by Thompson and gave false testimony out of fear. Judge Caprio's expression darkened. Where is Detective Morrison now? He retired in 2018, Your Honor. He's been uncooperative with the current investigation. The judge turned to Detective Rodriguez, who had worked under Morrison. Detective Rodriguez, you were part of the original investigation team. What can you tell us about how Marcus Williams became the prime suspect? Detective Rodriguez stood, his discomfort evident. Your Honor, I was a junior detective then. Detective Morrison was running the case. We had one witness, Mrs. Eleanor Patterson, who identified Mr. Williams from a photo lineup. And how reliable was this identification? I had concerns at the time, Rodriguez admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. The lighting was poor. Mrs. Patterson was 78 years old and had admitted vision problems. The incident incident happened at night, and she observed from across the street. I suggested we needed more evidence, but Detective Morrison said we had our man. Judge Caprio's voice carried a steel edge now. Detective, are you telling this court that you knew the identification was questionable, and yet Marcus Williams was arrested anyway? Yes, sir. I should have spoken up more forcefully. I was young, scared of challenging my superior. It's something I've regretted every day for 10 years. Marcus Williams looked up at Detective Rodriguez, seeing the genuine remorse in the man's eyes. But 10 years of his life were gone. 10 years he could never get back. Your Honor, Dr. Chen continued, there's more. We also discovered that Detective Morrison may have pressured Mrs. Patterson during the identification process. According to notes from a social worker who visited Mrs. Patterson before she died in 2019, she had expressed doubts about her identification, but felt pressured to stick with her original statement. The weight of corruption and incompetence pressed down on the courtroom like a heavy fog. Judge Caprio had seen bad police work before, but this level of negligence, or worse, was staggering. Mr. Williams, Judge Caprio addressed Marcus directly. I need you to understand something. What happened to you was not just a mistake. It was a failure of the system at multiple levels. A system that's supposed to protect the innocent failed you completely. Marcus Williams finally found his voice. Your Honor, I don't know what to say. For 10 years, I maintained my innocence. For 10 years, I was told I was lying. I started to wonder if maybe I was going crazy, if maybe I had blocked out the memory of what I'd done. His voice broke. Do you know what it's like to have everyone, police, prosecutors, even some of my own family, look at you like you're a monster? To have people you've known your whole life cross the street to avoid you when you're out on bail? To have your own mother sometimes look at you with doubt in her eyes? Sarah Williams stood up from the gallery. Never, she cried out. I never doubted you, baby. Not for 1 second. Judge Caprio allowed the outburst. This wasn't just a legal proceeding anymore. It was a family trying to heal from a decade of trauma. Mrs. Williams, Judge Caprio addressed Marcus's mother. Would you like to address the court? Sarah Williams approached the podium, her walker clicking against the floor. The 10 years had been hardest on her. She had worked 3 jobs to pay for appeals, had sold her house to afford better lawyers, had spent every visiting day at the prison. Judge Caprio, she began, her voice shaking but strong. My son is a good man. He was working 2 jobs when this happened, trying to save money for college. He had never been in trouble, never even got a speeding ticket, but nobody wanted to hear that. She turned to look at her son. Marcus tutored kids in the neighborhood. He helped elderly people with their groceries. The idea that he could kill someone, it was impossible. But the system didn't care about who he really was. They just wanted someone to blame. The worst part, she continued, was watching him lose hope. By year 7, he stopped talking about getting out. He stopped believing in justice. He told me once that maybe it would be easier if he just confessed to something he didn't do, because at least then the world would make sense again. Judge Caprio felt the weight of every word. This wasn't just about one wrongful conviction. It was about the destruction of faith in justice itself. Mr. Williams, the judge said, I want you to know that what happened to you represents everything that's wrong with our system when we prioritize closing cases over finding truth. Detective Morrison's actions, the rushed investigation, the unreliable witness identification, none of this should have happened. He paused, consulting his notes. But there's something else this court needs to address. Mr. Williams, you've been in prison for 10 years. During that time, you earned your GED, then a bachelor's degree through the prison education program. You became a mentor to younger inmates. You started a literacy program. Even while suffering this tremendous injustice, you found ways to make a positive impact. Marcus nodded, tears in his eyes. Prison was hell, Your Honor, but I couldn't let it destroy who I was inside. If I was going to survive, I had to find purpose, even there. The irony, Judge Caprio observed, is that you've probably done more good in the past 10 years than many free people do in a lifetime. You turned suffering into service. Dr. Chen stepped forward again. Your Honor, there's one final piece of information. Raymond Thompson, the actual perpetrator, has agreed to confess. He's been carrying the guilt for 10 years, knowing an innocent man was in prison for his crime. He wants to testify. Bring him in, Judge Caprio ordered. The courtroom doors opened, and Raymond Thompson entered in shackles. He was a large man, heavily tattooed, with the hard look of someone who had spent most of his adult life in and out of prison. But today, his eyes showed something different, remorse. Mr. Thompson, Judge Caprio said, you understand you're confessing to murder? That this confession will likely add years to your sentence? Thompson nodded. Yes, sir. I can't live with this anymore. I robbed that store. When the old man tried to stop me, I panicked. I hit him with a bottle and he fell and hit his head. I never meant to kill him, but I did. He looked directly at Marcus Williams. I'm sorry, man. I'm so sorry. When I heard they arrested someone else, I should have come forward. I was a coward. I let you pay for what I did." The courtroom was silent except for the sound of Sarah Williams crying softly. Judge Caprio had presided over thousands of cases, but few had affected him as deeply as this one. The complete breakdown of justice, the lost decade of an innocent man's life, the failure of multiple people who should have done better. It was overwhelming. "Mr. Williams," Judge Caprio said, his voice heavy with emotion, "on behalf of the justice system that failed you so completely, I offer you the most sincere apology this court can give. What happened to you should never happen to anyone." He picked up his gavel. "Based on the conclusive DNA evidence, the confession of the actual perpetrator, and the clear evidence of a fundamentally flawed investigation, this court hereby vacates the conviction of Marcus Williams on all charges. Mr. Williams, you are free to go." The gavel came down, and Marcus Williams was finally officially innocent. But Judge Caprio wasn't finished. "This case reveals systematic problems that go beyond one wrongful conviction. I'm ordering a full investigation into Detective Morrison's conduct during his tenure. I'm also recommending that the state create a wrongful conviction compensation program, because no amount of money can give Mr. Williams back 10 years of his life, but it can at least acknowledge the magnitude of this injustice." As the proceedings concluded, Marcus Williams walked out of the courthouse a free man for the first time in a decade. The sun felt different on his face. The air tasted different. Everything was different. But he also walked out knowing that his case was not unique. Across the country, other innocent people sat in prison cells, waiting for evidence that might never come, maintaining their innocence to deaf ears. Judge Caprio had seen the dark side of justice that day, but he had also seen something else: the unbreakable spirit of an innocent man who refused to let injustice destroy his humanity. And perhaps, in the end, that was the most important verdict of all. The case of Marcus Williams would go on to change procedures in criminal investigations across the state. But for one man and his mother, walking out of that courthouse together after 10 years apart, justice, delayed but finally delivered, was enough.